Welcome to the final iChemie Safety Centre webinar for 2023. My name is Trish Kerrin. I'm the Director of the iChemie Safety Centre and I'll be facilitating this webinar today. Today we have a really interesting presentation on the Tacoa Power Plant Boilover that'll be presented by Ewan Stewart. Ewan will also be joined by Rixio Medina and Angel Freytez Gimenez, both of whom were involved in that particular event. So whilst we go through this webinar, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the questions panel and we will address those questions at the end. I apologise for my dog barking. I'm now going to hand over to Ewan to start the presentation.
Thanks, Trish. So today we're going to discuss the events of 19th December 1982, which is one of the most devastating tank fires in history. It's not well known of in the English-speaking world, predominantly due to the language barrier. So yeah, we'll get into it. So first of all, just to put La Guaira on the map, so the Tacoa Power Plant is located on the northern coast of Venezuela. La Guaira is a thin strip of land that separates the Caribbean Sea from rugged mountains. It's regarded as the gateway to Caracas. La Guaira is known for its beautiful beaches, kind of delightful colonial settlements. This is Castillo de las Salinas, which isn't quite a colonial settlement, but it is visible in most of the pictures of the power plant. The people of La Guaira love a good festival and a party. This is the Dancing Devils of Niguata, which is a colourful kind of festival. And baseball is the main sport. Very competitive baseball league. Many Venezuelan players go on to compete in the US Major League. So this is the Ricardo Zologa generator complex, a picture postcard. It supplies, at the time, it supplied 1,700 megawatts of power to the greater Caracas area. Pretty much all of Caracas's power needs were supplied from here. It's actually made up of 3 separate facilities. So the original Arrecife power plant, there's the original Tacoa Power Plant, which was installed in the 1950s, and then the much larger Tacoa expansion plant was installed in the late 70s. The 2 later plants were built on reclaimed land, meaning that there wasn't a great deal of plot area for fuel oil storage tanks. And during the expansion, these had to be installed high on the hillside. If you can see the middle chimney stack of the expansion plant, which is red and white, there's a large white water reservoir behind that now, but that was the site of this incident. So on the morning of 19th December, in fact, a lot of people wonder how it's possible to ignite a heavy fuel oil. Fuel oil number 6 is specifically known for being tar-like and sluggish. The answer actually lies in blending operations as well as inappropriate temperatures. So the power plant could operate on 2 liquid fuels. Had the cracked residual, which is the traditional very heavy fuel, as well as fuel oil number 6, which was combined with kind of lighter ends to make it easier to pump. Critically, all of the alarms and trips within the storage in the plant were configured based on the heavier fuel oil. So although the fuel oil number 6 had a flash point of 71 degrees Celsius, the alarms didn't sound until it reached 80 degrees Celsius, and in fact temperatures as high as 88 degrees were recorded prior to this incident. So the lighter ends were very much being boiled off within the tank, creating a hydrocarbon vapor. So on the morning of 19th December, three plant personnel went up the hill to the tank to conduct gauging operations. When they opened the gauging hatch, that would have allowed air to enter the tank and hydrocarbon gas to exit, creating a flammable gas-air mixture. I don't think it was ever identified the cause of the initial explosion. It could have been static from the dip tube. It could have been, well, it was speculated that it might have been a cigarette or a non-intrinsically safe lamp, but whatever the cause, a massive explosion occurred, which expelled the tank roof, killing the two operators on the top of the tank instantaneously, with the third operator managing to escape to the safety of the control room. Yeah, so there weren't really any contingency plans on the site. There's a dedicated firewater reserve. I think this was about 3,600 meters cubed further up the hill, represented by those three green tanks. However, there wasn't a concerted effort by staff to access this. There wasn't a fire brigade on site. The local fire departments were only able to reach the site 20 minutes after the initial explosion, just due to the sort of circuitous and winding narrow roads. A foam tank was found to be completely empty, and the steep terrain made the elevated tank fire difficult to access, with fire engines parked in the streets around the tank, but unable to access the tank itself. Apologies. Okay. Yeah. So this is just a screenshot showing one of the fire monitors. Of three firewater pumps, only two were operational at the time of the fire, meaning that there was insufficient pressure in the firewater system, and the water was really just kind of spurting out of the fire monitors. Certainly wasn't enough pressure to be able to reach the side of the tanks for cooling or the inner contents of the tanks. Yeah, so eventually the fire department were able to get a small pumper truck, a foam pumper truck, up to the top of the hill to try and apply foam to the fire. However, when they got there, they found that the coarse national pipe thread connection at the plant was incompatible with the fine thread national hose that the fire department used, so they actually weren't able to connect the pumper truck to the water system on the site. And as the fire was raging in the background, they set about the kind of quite brave and risky improvisation of trying to weld a new connection so they could connect the foam. Yeah, so the emergency services established a perimeter around the fire. However, it was quite difficult to get people to leave the houses, I think. As well as that, the media arrived on site and they were able to get as close to the burning tank as the firefighters themselves. Lots of people were kind of drawn to the area, lots of them to kind of see how they could help out. Others maybe to observe the fire. And this artwork is courtesy of Ramid Apari, so shout out to Ramin. Right, ingredients of a boilover. So there's really three things that you need for a boilover to occur in the storage tank. First of all, you need a wide range of hydrocarbon components. You have to have both volatile components, light ends, as well as those viscous residues. Yeah, At the time, fuel oil number 6 was not believed to have a sufficient range of components for boilover to occur, and the design was unfortunately based on that assumption. You also need a heel of water, as well as an open tank fire. If the roof remains on the tank, then the boilover doesn't really occur. So with these 3 ingredients, you had the volatile, like the lighter ends would have been boiled off at the surface of the fire, and the heavy components at the surface will have become hotter and hotter, and would have been kind of, with the loss of the light ends, they would become heavier than the fluid beneath, and so this generated a kind of a growing heat wave, which sank ever so slowly within the tank. I think about 6 hours after the fire began, the heat wave reached the heel of water at the bottom of the tank, probably at temperatures between 150 and 300 degrees. The water would have been initially superheated due to the pressure of the fluid above it, and then it would have expanded instantaneously to steam, like expanding maybe by a factor of 1,000 or 2,000. So this resulted in a very violent boilover, which expelled the contents of the tank. Those on site would have experienced a very, very intense heat wave, burning oil raining from the sky, followed by just the contents of the tank kind of flowing downhill, just kind of destroying everything in its path. So the burning oil would have flown over garden walls, through houses. And this is, I guess, the extent of the boilover. Interestingly enough, the boilover extinguished the fire in the original tank, Tank 8, and then a subsequent fire, it started the subsequent fire in Tank 9, which was a little bit further down the hillside. So the consequences were very serious. 150 plus dead, that's a conservative estimate. 500 injured, 150 million damage to property, and under fears that a similar boilover would happen in Tank 9, about 40,000 people were evacuated, and there were widespread power cuts across Caracas. So I'm going to show you a very brief video clip of the aftermath. So I'll start that now. Yeah, so soon you'll see that's Tank 9 on fire. Tank 8 is sort of crumpled and blackened on the hillside there. And there you can see the very steep dike walls and the settlements underneath. Around now, you can see the extent of the black and charred landscape and where the green trees start again. The concrete perimeter wall of the facility, which protected it from the fire. And you can see the kind of beach at the end, where a lot of people were congregated. Yeah, so it's horrific to think there were actually sort of people down there on the ground afterwards, with the fire still raging, but we've got 2 of them here today. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Rixio Medina. He's the founder and principal consultant at REM Risk Consultants, past president of the American Society of Safety Professionals, and he was elected by the US president to the US Chemical Safety Board. So welcome, Rixio.
Thanks, Ewan, for asking me to share or to make some comments about my experience with the Tacoa fire. Ibrahim Alfonso Ferrer, the person you see here on your screen, was my immediate supervisor, my mentor and friend. And I met him the fall of 1973, 9 years before the Tacoa fire, when he was the group leader of fire protection and security for Creole Petroleum Corporation, which was Exxon's affiliate, or Exxon, it was an affiliate of Exxon in Venezuela. At that time, Ibrahim talked to me about his job in fire protection, his education at Oklahoma State University, and gave me a broad explanation about the bright future people would have in the field of fire protection and safety engineering. 6 months following that conversation, I left my parents' home in my country, Venezuela, for first time ever to start my journey in fire protection and safety at Oklahoma State University. Throughout this time, Ibrahim kept informed about my progress in college. And during my last year, he offered me an internship in the Fire Prevention and Control Group of the Amoy Refinery, which was the largest operating refinery in the world at that time, with 635,000 barrels per day of crude throughput. And that same day, that same year, in 1 month before my graduation, he made me a job offer to join his team at the Amoy Refinery as a fire prevention engineer and volunteer fire brigade leader. He also assigned me as an understudy to the Exxon Fire Protection Advisor in Venezuela, with the hopes that I assisted him in all his technical work and learn from him as much as I could. 3.5 years later, Ibrahim sent me back to the US to pursue a Master's of Science degree in Industrial Security. And upon graduation, he assigned me to work in the corporate office in Caracas as a fire protection advisor for the entire corporation, reporting directly to him. But I was temporarily living with my family at the Amoy Refinery. They assigned me a house at the staff camp there. During this period of time, I traveled across the country through the productions, marketing, and refinery sites. And every weekend I went home. I share with you this background information so you can appreciate the tight professional and personal relationship I had with Ibrahim Ferrer, one of the many persons deceased at the Tacoa Type Fire and Boilover catastrophe. The weekend of December 17, 1982, I was home in Amoy, and on the 18th, the next day, I attended with my wife the refinery department Christmas party that the executive team offered to managers and professional staff. It was also a great opportunity for my wife and I to celebrate our 6th wedding anniversary in a dinner with the Venezuelan most famous band. Precursors of the Tacoa tragedy were already in motion at that time. We went home just 4 hours before the Tacoa Tank A ignited. I also did not know that a few days before, the Amoy refinery, which you see there on the lower left side of your screen, had dispatched a fuel oil number 6 bunker C cargo using another affiliate's tanker, Maraven Murichi, to the Tacoa thermoelectric plant located in the central coastal section of Venezuela, northwest of Caracas. And that operational issues were already happening at the Tacoa time early in the morning. Next slide, please. At around 9 a.m. on Saturday, December the 19th, I was awakened by Ibrahim's phone call from Caracas. He told me that the president of Lagoven has received a request from the Venezuelan government asking for an expert firefighting advisor for a tank fire at the Tacoa plant. He mentioned that he was not feeling well, he was kind of under the weather, but he was going to the scene of the fire. Ibrahim is the person you see on the right side of the photo wearing a Bahar hat while he was at the fire site along with an executive of the Caracas Electric Company, who were the owners and operators of the Tacoa plant. Ibrahim asked me to gather my firefighting bunker gear to contact Lagoven's hangar operations center and wait for a company plane that was going to take me to his location. That was my last conversation with Ibrahim. Within minutes, I was at the Amuay local airport waiting for the plane. I waited for many hours. There was a lot of confusion and misinformation going on. The boilover occurred, and there was some information of great loss of lives. It were reported in the news media, and the airspace around the Tacoa in the Maiquetía airport that serviced Caracas was closed for many hours. Ibrahim was missing, and finally the company plane picked me up around 6 p.m. that evening. At my arrival at Caracas, a military escort was waiting for me at the company's hangar and brought me to the nearby city hall, where I met a National Guard general who was at the time the director of Venezuela Civil Defense, who briefed me about what he knew about the emergency and invited me to join him in a meeting with fire department, police, military, and local authorities officials that was going to be held at my own company, Katia Lamar Marketing Terminal. So with very little preparation and 29 years of age, I stood in front of many influential people in a conference room to discuss the ongoing Tacoa emergency. With the use of a blackboard, I explained basic strategy, tactics, and logistics to fight an atmospheric tank fire. At this time, number 9 tank was fully involved in the fire, and I worked an example using information I recall out of my mind from NFPA 11 foam standard, from the American Petroleum Institute recommended practice regarding tank fire firefighting, and other information I had gathered in my short career. Once minimum water, foam, solution application rates, fire surface area, fire water system requirements, and foam concentrated needed, and I kind of explained with that example on the blackboard, my final advice was that an offensive attack should not be initiated until all the resources were available on site. My company immediately offered 3,000 gallons of foam concentrate that we had at the facility and a portable monitor cannon, but a lot more resources were needed, following the example that I work in the blackboard. From there, I was instructed by my company to provide advice to the electric company representatives, which I did nonstop for almost 2 days. I flew with a helicopter around the area to have an overview and observe the magnitude of the fire. But I was personally concerned about Ibrahim. By that time, it was an accepted fact that he had perished during the boilover, and they were trying to identify his remains. After that was accomplished, I flew back in a company plane with Ibrahim remains to his hometown, where his family, friends, and co-workers held a religious ceremony to celebrate his life. The following days and weeks, I wrote reports to my company executive and leaders, provided a couple of textbooks that I had that provided technical information pertaining to this type of emergency, and was interviewed by members of the Presidential Commission that was appointed to investigate the Tacoa fire and boilover catastrophe. This was an extremely and a very stressful experience that marked my professional and personal life and made me have a determination to not let this tragedy and the people whose lives were lost be forgotten. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Rixio, for sharing your story. And sorry for the loss of Ibrahim. I know it's been 40 years, but obviously, like, the emotions are still very raw there. Just wanted to make that observation before I move on. Okay, so in terms of public reaction, yeah, there was so much speculation in the media afterwards. Mainly because the official investigation, there was a lot of secrecy around that, and it was never released to the public. We know that there was 6 volumes compiled, but only a superficial 12-page summary was ever made available. I know Rixio would have also been involved in the investigation, but fortunately we have also Angel. We have Angel Freytez, who is going to describe his experiences of the investigation. Angel was also involved in the subsequent tank fire. So welcome, Angel. Angel is a senior safety specialist at the Texas State University, former Caracas Federal District Fire Chief, and also on the Tacoa Fire Judicial Investigation Team. So welcome, Angel.
Thanks for having me, the organizer. And I was fire chief from Caracas. I spent 35 years in the fire service. And back in 1978, I had a scholarship given by the government. And I went to Oklahoma State University, the same alma mater of Rixio, and I graduated in 1981 of Fire Protection and Safety Engineering, and came back to Venezuela and spent 1 year as an internship in Corpovain, which is one of the PDVSA companies at that time. Corpovain had, in 1981, a very, very huge fire and explosion, which almost destroyed the town San Rafael de Laya in the Guaricos state, and maybe that was the main reason for they hiring me for that year. When I finished that, I rejoined the fire service, and they named me as the training director. And by the time of Tacoa Fire in 1982, I was in that position. I just when I retired from the fire service in 1993, just a few months after, they nominated me the civil defense director from the entire country. In 2000, I retired definitely from the public service. I just want to present how was my participation, my involvement in the Tacoa fire. On the evening of December 18, 1982, we had a holiday celebration at the Officer Club in our headquarters in Caracas Federal District Fire Department. We shared beautiful and happy times with all of our officers and their families. Very early on Sunday, the 19th, I attended a family engagement to a national park near the city of Caracas, where there was little to no communications signal, even by phone or radio. That fateful morning, a colleague, a neighbor, showed up at my house about 40 minutes from the city to inform me of a fire in La Guaira. He did not find me there, so he decided to warn another trusted colleague, Marco Salazar, who said he could not attend at that time because there were some repairs being done at his house. Xavier de Tejada lost his life there in the boilover of the power plant. That afternoon, I picked up, coming back from the park, the news on the commercial radio. I went to our headquarters first, then to the coast, to La Guaira, on a motorcycle because of the difficulty of traveling there by vehicle. I remained there for 3 days fighting the fires that followed the initial event. After several days, the investigation process began at the corresponding court according to its jurisdiction. Judge Carlos Soucre appointed a commission of experts to support his investigations. I was included in that commission. For months, we worked as a team to determine the cause and legal responsibilities, if any. The national government and various government entities appointed different commissions at different levels. This fact contributed a lot to the dispersion of the legal purpose, making it a rather political subject. The final legal action that we identified at the, repeat, legal court commission were the temperature of the fuel inside the tanks surpassed by far that of the technical specification. The fire suppression system that was supposed to use foam was never activated. The equipment approval tests were not carried out, although there were permits issued at the design level, but not at the operational level. The temperature indicators to the control room had been indicating failures, and it had become a practice to reset the alarms that night before the fire. A decision was made on site to send personnel to check the fuel level by climbing to the roof of the tank number 8. The fuel tank had not been drained to the accumulation of the bottom of the tank, so it was not a product of water powered by the firefighters. It was evident that any attempt to direct water over the tanks on fire led to evaporation long before it even reached the surface of the tank. An emergency plan had not been established by the company. To the lack of communication and coordination between the emergency units and the plant personnel resulted in a total chaos. Security did not prevent access for many people, including first responders to the emergency and others such as journalists, volunteers, police, military, and the public. No criminal liability was held against the senior management of the Caracas Electricity Company, nor against construction engineers, nor against the board of directors. A trial was opened against 8 officials of the company, professionals in the area of industrial safety and plant manager. Only one person was brought before the judge because the others left the country. The person was detained for less than a month. The case entered a political field rather than a judicial stage through controversies at the National Congress and various parties' statements in the media. It was not possible to determine the initial cause of the fire. During the interrogation, the only survivor of that initial explosion denied that any of them had lighted a match or produced any spark during the initial process. After the legal aspect, through the hypothesis of independent tests, the possibility was raised that the fuel oil tank number 6 must have been contaminated with more volatile products that would have justified the boilover. By that time, we believe that fuel oil number 6 didn't have the chance to present the boilover. That was what the many actors during the firefighting process, even in the media, they established and they say, we let that tank burn out because we don't expect any boilover, including many specialists which say that. So there was something in that tank which didn't behave as a regular boiler number 6. After that, you know, the standards, the international standards have been changed, that giving the possibilities of the boilover in the fuel oil number 6. Personally, I believe there was no proper closure to the families of almost 150 victims, including our 60 firefighters to different departments: maritime, aeronautical, volunteer, civil defense people. And as always in our country, political and economic interest prevailed in that case. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Angel, for shedding a light on that. We're so fortunate to have people like you that are able to can tell the full story, and as well, yeah, sorry for the loss of your friend Xavier. So in terms of safety improvements following the incident, the plant kind of shifted its dual fuel generators to natural gas in the years that followed. Tanks 8 and 9 were both removed, and in their place was installed a massive demineralized water reservoir. Hot work permit systems were implemented, and smoking was prohibited throughout the plant. Yeah, procedures were also put in place to ensure that such an incident could never take place again. So any cargo being offloaded to the facility would be tested to ensure that its flash point did not exceed a certain temperature. If it did, the cargo was rejected immediately. At the same time, the tanks were controlled so that the contents could never reach even within kind of 3 degrees of this temperature. An emergency brigade was established at the power plant, and that was equipped with kind of rapid intervention trucks and all the all the facilities that were necessary to protect the plant in any future incidents. Working groups were also established with local fire stations, and emergency response procedures were developed and periodically reviewed. So the final chapter, I guess the enduring legacy of the Tacoa Power Plant Boilover was that both the American Petroleum Institute and the National Fire Protection Association changed their standards to recognise the potential for boilover in fuel oil storage tanks. So that has influenced the safe design and operation of similar facilities across the globe. Yeah, and 40 years on, it would be great if those official reports could be released. That's all the content that I had for today. So over to you, Trish.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation, Ewan and Rixio and Angel. I think it was quite a very sobering presentation to listen to, and especially thank you to Angel and Rixio for sharing such deeply personal stories. And I'd like to, along with you, and express my condolences for the loss of your dear friends in this absolute tragedy. I also think it's fantastic that we've got the opportunity, though, to bring a light to this and actually share this information with some people, because certainly from my perspective, and I've had quite a long career in process safety, I was unaware of this particular incident and its detail until Ewan presented it. So, you know, thanks, Ewan, for finding some of these gems of presentations that you find and going through and engaging with the people that were engaged and there at the time. A couple of questions, I guess, just to start off with, and I might go to you first, Rixio. So, you know, obviously you were going down the path of safety, being a safety engineer prior to this incident, and obviously losing your mentor, Ibrahim, in this incident had a significant impact on your future career. What do you think were some of the key elements, though, that came out of your experience at the Tacoa plant that really shaped your very impressive career in process safety?
Well, I definitely, from the Tacoa fire and the experience and the investigation and all of that went on, I took special interest into incident investigation, emergency response planning, and several elements of process safety management. And that, over the years, allowed me to concentrate like a third of my career in process safety in the U.S., in Venezuela, and then in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And for the last 5 years, globally, in process safety management. But I have kept special interest on tank fires and fuel number 6 fires. For example, a fact that has not been discussed much was that prior to Tacoa, there have been 2 fuel oil number 6 tank fires that sustain boilovers that are documented, that technical information exists. Not even NFPA knew about it until recent years that the document surfaced. Japan was an example. A power plant in Japan, a fuel oil number 6 tank, sustained a boilover. And so, you know, over the years, I've gathered all these pieces of information. Another one is, for example, people that work in refineries and product specification know that every time that you ship a load of a cargo, you keep samples of those cargoes. I remember working in the design of a fire protection system, a deluge system, for a laboratory annex at the Amoy refinery that had thousands of bottles containing samples of the cargoes that were being shipped. And guess what? The Tacoa sample was there. And guess what? It met ASTM specifications. Now, anyone can meet a specification at that time. They were so simple for fuel number 6 that you had wide ranges of properties that if you were within those ranges, you met the specifications, provided that the client didn't have more stringent specifications. So, over the years, I've developed an interest in finding facts like those, and has shaped my career. And hopefully, I've helped other new professionals get interest in just not taking reports as they surface, but search for facts, for new information that can help them prevent similar events and can prevent the loss of lives like we had in Tacoa.
Okay. So how do you think we could get better as a group of professionals then, maybe in surfacing these incidents, being able to share them and then effectively learn from them? Because you're right, there's a lot of incidents out there. There's nothing new that's happening. It's all happened before. We don't seem to learn from it. Do you have any insight into maybe how we could get better at sharing and learning?
Well, that's an area of concern. I'm involved a lot with new professionals, and we have an army of new professionals that have not had experience to face catastrophes like this or big challenges like this. And most of the veterans or the professionals that are retired. So industry, trade, and professionals associations have the duty, the main opportunity to gather those information and make sure they share. I have, in my career, seen how some important information that by no means is confidential, that can be actually shared across the board with practitioners, with other companies, to give a better assurance that similar mistakes or oversights or challenges are not properly addressed. Trade associations, both professionals and industry, should take a lead on this thing and capturing all this information, historic information, and make sure it's shared with the new generations of individuals that are now helping industry, helping their governments, helping their communities, and have safe work environments.
Okay, thank you. Angel, so thank you for sharing your story. Professional firefighter within the, at the time, and obviously deeply involved not only in the actual response, but also the investigation. How do you think that particularly shaped your career going forward and your continued interest in safety?
Oh, definitely there was something which marked my life. I lost, remember, our fire department lost from the second commander to down to officers, down to sub-officers. So it was a really, not only, of course, the life of our friends, but it really broken the institution just like that. So it made us, the young people, I was captain by that time, and I was in the basic training school. It changed our life because now we have to assume many responsibilities, and we were promoted to just going to upper level, and with that having the years of experience to base on that. And they made us like to grow in just a kind of shock. We didn't have time. And I have very regrets that we spent too much time to explain the people, the media, the political, that there was not the water thrown by the firefighters, by the fire department, producing the boilover. That was hard. Even the company, one of the very first statement of the president of the electricity, it made the claim that the firefighter were the people responsible for that. So we spent really hard time presented in the media, like Owen did today, the professional technical explanation about how the boilover happens. So it changed our life. I mean, my life, because it was a young fire officer, just starting my career, and now have to assume very high responsibilities going up to the fire chief. So, and something which we have to learn is a very, very important lesson. That plan, which you see that in that picture, the design is a complete, terrible engineering, technical location. It's just in the middle of roads. There is a town there, shanty towns, but recreational and expensive houses. Not only poor people living there. It was a place for tourism. You see yachts, boats, and tourists going back and forth. There was no design for the emergency. There was no, the road, there was so narrow, only jeeps can go around the towns. So we are dealing with that all over. We can spend days talking about that is the main factor, the design, the consideration, the political approval, our municipalities approval, that kind of installation, chemical, petrochemical plant, just in the middle. I realize that it's happening in our countries, that you feel like a refinery and you want to see people living around because it's economical, they are looking for the economical survival. So that is a very, very sad experience. But I believe our generation, after that, we changed our training. We did start like a medium technical level, and now we have a professional university level in our fire department. So we approach the education to get to our level of people, our officers, to go to some professional, the highest professional level. And that's the main thing which I am proud of being part of that process of education and getting to that level that we have now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I think there's been so many really interesting learnings that have come out of it. And I think over the course of this presentation, we've really highlighted a couple of key issues that occurred. So there was initial design related issues, there was reliability related issues, procedures and processes, safe work systems, and obviously also then the emergency response process as well. And there were obviously concerns that happened all the way through that. I'd like to thank you, all three of you, for participating in this webinar. Thank you to Ewan for pulling it all together, and thank you to Rixio and Angel for your really thoughtful contributions to it. It's very much appreciated. As I mentioned at the start of this webinar, this is our last webinar for 2023. We'll be starting 2024 with a new series of webinars across the year. So if there is anything else that you would like to see in webinars, please do let us know. Contact the Safety Centre at ikme.org, and we can start to look at how we can address some of your webinar needs. I've got some messages coming in now thanking you for a great presentation. Thank you to our audience. Look forward to speaking with you all again next year. Everybody, please stay safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you.